yourself. Tell me, where are you from and a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Nonqkubela Mayatula, and I was born and bred in the Eastern Cape. And to be more specific, it's a town called Dukwa. And to be even more specific, from a village called Nqkwane. And now, just to put a little bit of context for some of the people who might not know where that is, from a tourist destination point of view, it is about 45 minutes from Kulu, which is in Umtata. So that's where I was born and bred. What I do is I own and operate one or two establishments from a tourism point of view, one being Beginsel Equestrian Farm in Clarens in the mountains. And the second one is Miarestate Wildlife Estate. And more to the point, it is an ecotourism estate. It is located Haga-Haga is near East London, and it's on the coast. Every time I speak to people, I say Haga-Haga, they go, Haga who? You almost have to start with the map and say, you know, the wild coast does not end in Port Elizabeth as far as tourism is concerned. It actually does go on to more pristine and undiscovered environments like we have in Miarestate.
Very interesting. I didn't know that there was borders, places. That brings me to my next question. You say that you are the owner of 2 establishments. What got you into tourism? What got you interested?
You know, Daniela, it actually comes from a very personal base. You know, at some point in one's life, you go through a major event, and that event may be good or bad. And when that event occurs, it gives you this deep sense and urge, a desperate need to go back to yourself, if that makes any sense, or to something familiar and something one can call home. So after my daughter passed on about 17 years ago, and having been in the exploration and mining industry, because that's where my professional career at some point was based, I realized that whilst mineral resources from my point of view are depletable in nature, the life and benefits derived from them can be extended way beyond the life of that resource. And with the activities that you do and you put on the ground. And then I decided to use that investment to invest in nature, and to take the proceeds from that and say, how do I preserve and conserve what I believe is the true competitive advantage of Africa? And that is wildlife. And that brings us to wildlife and conservation. I think that it is our true competitive and sustainable advantage. And I also moved from the premise that, you know, as South Africans with our rich history, the Freedom Charter states that the national wealth of our country, the heritage of all South Africans, shall be restored to the people. I went and bought land to give effect to that. About 740 hectares of this property, which is got about, wraps around 6-kilometer coastline. So that's how I got into tourism. It stemmed from a very, very deep and personal need to go back to oneself and to do something meaningful and sustainable for the rest of us. And it's actually quite a journey, because it took many, many years, and to be able to translate and interpret what one was doing in their professional life to being more of a value and being more of a conservationist, so to speak, was quite a very awakening realization to say, how do I extend the benefits of our endowment as nature to as long as possible for the future generations. That's how Miarestate was established.
You got interested because it brought you back to where you come from, it brought you back to your roots. Why do you think is tourism important to South Africa and to you and your family?
I love what I do for one of the primary reasons is to be of service is something quite meaningful to somebody. Everybody wants to wake up and know that they are useful and they serve a purpose. And how best do we express that? As Africans, and perhaps other nations, to be of service is quite something meaningful to serve somebody else. So that's one from a personal point of view. For my family, my children, if you look at tourism as an act of sightseeing or traveling away from one's surroundings and to look at what is different, to experience nature, I see it as a very much open mind opener. And to have an open mind, you have to explore the world, you have to see and experience different ways of life. And that gives you an opportunity to challenge your own beliefs and values. And you say, whilst I believe that life should be like this, there are actually other ways of life. And once you learn and understand the context of those ways of life, then you say, actually, whilst that is different from me, I think it can be better than what I know. Now that speaks to tolerance of differences. That speaks to diversity. That speaks to tolerance. I want to expose my children to that. I want them to travel the world. I have traveled the world to get this sense. And you get it through tourism. And when you get it through tourism, first you travel. There is somebody there that is going to receive you. That is now the hospitality, the delivery of service side of things. And to experience that warmth of being received and of being treated. It's more like, in our day-to-day lives, we go through stresses and strains. We, one way or the other, we need to escape, we need to rehabilitate, we need to set our minds onto something fresh and to something different. That's how you liberate your mind, that's how you relax. Now, from a service provider point of view, being an owner and operator of a product like that, it gives me such great pleasure, and it's an honor to be able to provide that to somebody else, whilst I also enjoy it very much myself and for my children. For the country, besides, Daniela, the numbers and statistics that we know, the contribution to GDP and employment, as we know that tourism is quite a large employer, and women comprise a large percentage of that. I see it as giving the same opportunity to be of service to all South Africans. When you're in tourism, you're selling a product, you're selling your country, you're selling your people. Now, for the country, the more people become involved with that, the more they embrace and understand, and and they become of service themselves to whomever is coming from their side. It could be a village. It does not need to be a hotel. It could be a village. It could be a home. It could be a school. When somebody is visiting you, they're coming to you to host them. So I look at hospitality beyond the actual product itself. I look at it from the point of view of each and every one of us as South Africans, and how we welcome people coming from outside, how we embrace them, and how we make them feel. So now, that again is important for each and every one of us as South Africans to become ambassadors of our own country in every little way that we can. And I know we're talking tourism now, but I like to expand it beyond that to say to what you do when you interact with somebody else that comes from outside of your circle. Now, so that in and of itself is the beginning of you embracing people. So I also like it. There are so many reasons, that tourism is important and critical for our country. It speaks to our freedom of movement. It speaks to all kinds of things that make us whole as people. So I'm just talking about the more philosophical and principle values, because I know everybody knows the statistics, the employment, and so on and so forth. So that's what I like about it, and that's what I like for my family about tourism, and that's the same things I like for the country, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does really. I really like your standpoint, and a lot of women will agree with you in that sense. Speaking about women in tourism, if you could give a message out to our women in tourism, or our women that has been affected by the lockdown, what would you say to them? How would you keep them motivated in this time?
I will begin with saying, for instance, where I am and how long it took me to get where I am. I always give thanks to the people who came before me, the people who enabled that environment for me to be able to do what I do. And it's always important for me that I am where I am, not just by myself, because other people made it possible. I made reference to you earlier on about the Freedom Charter, and that allows us as South Africans and other people to participate meaningfully in our economy. This is one of the ways that we participate meaningfully into our economy. And then say, here's where we are now today, and given what we are experiencing, what can we do as women? Women are naturally nurturers. We take care of people, we take care of things. And how best do you do that than tourism, being hospitable, hosting people and being of service to people? You are nurturing, and we are women, it's a strength. Now, there are many strategies and ways to go about that. And do you know that I always, because I'm in conservation and I like animals, I like to use wildlife as an example. If you take a leopard, for instance, a leopard, when it hunts, it's a lone hunter, right? It will go quietly, retract its claws, walk on its paws, and move quietly towards its target, right? And then it uses stealth to stalk the prey, and then strength to conclude. That's what we do as people and as business owners. More specifically to women, did you know that from lions, it's the female lions that are hunters? Now, they do it a little bit more differently to leopards. Go in a pack. Now, depending on one situation or scenario, you can be a lone hunter and you can hunt in a pack just like lions do. And I think under these strange times we live in, we need to get together. We need to choreograph. You need to strategize together. We need to move swiftly as a people. And then we have a much larger impact that is beyond my one little establishment and your little establishment. It's bigger than that. It becomes community, it becomes country, it becomes all of those things. Now that's what we can do and other women can do to achieve the things that we need to achieve. Do you know that in South Africa, out of the 122 million hectares of land, 20 million hectares are in the hands of private game farmers, right? And 10 million of which are earmarked for land reform initiatives. Now, it becomes quite an anomaly that exists, that out of that, to be a woman and to be Black and to own land, and not only that, to run a game farm is something that is different. It's something that is actually quite unnatural. As unnatural as it is, then it gives the opportunity for people and women to grab that and participate in a space in a way that has never been precedented before. What I like about what you do is you have to then have something that is quite unique in your offering. There are many products, there are many things that people do every day. You need to find and establish that uniqueness in that offering. And what we do at Miarestate, we combine elements in an unprecedented way. We combine wildlife, we combine hospitality, we combine communities, with the realization that, the modern traveler, especially coming out of COVID-19 and all of that, people are looking for something meaningful. When they travel, they want to go to a destination that is constructive, to a destination that involves interpretation and education, that is positive to the communities in which a product is placed. This is the opportunity we have that have also come out of a difficult situation, because this is what the whole world is longing for, those destinations and places where people feel they are contributing meaningfully to the lives of the people on the ground. And as women, we are so better placed to deliver this as nurturers, as hunters, as I pointed out to you. And because we do it and we do it solely and we can. So you turn around to the difficult situation, you create an opportunity out of it. It is not easy. Hence the choice of strategy, whether you're a lone hunter or you hunt in a pack like lions. But it is definitely doable.
I agree with you, and a very, very great comparison with the lions and the hyenas and the solo and the very, very good. That speaks to a lot of people, you know. This
Mm.
brings me to my next question. If you could speak to the president, what would you tell him? What would you ask him on behalf of our women in tourism, like you?
I think that I look at life the way society is balanced in the form of a prism, a triangle, which is the strongest shape. You would have on one part business, which is operators, and those are driven by financial imperatives. You have on this leg civil society and communities. Those are driven by different objectives. At the bottom of your triangle is government. Government regulates the relationship between business and communities. Now, this is where government comes into play, or the president. We need to have a far better or effective collaboration between the public sector and the private sector. And a lot of that can be driven from the government led by our president point of view, in that we need to enable access. In order for people to come and enjoy and realize these things that we talk about, we need to be accessible. Infrastructure, logistics, aeroplanes, and so on and so forth. We need to make our regulation environment easy to work with. When you talk about visa and the ease for people to come to our country, and that's regulation, that's policy. And I now know more than ever before this becomes important, because the whole world is looking to get out there and breathe coming out of this pandemic. And I know our president and our government is in a position to fast track or accelerate that collaboration between the public and the private sector as an enabler. So that's what I would ask our president, and to say to him that we as the service providers, we are ready. We know what we can do and what we need to deliver. And we've got the right values and principles that we know under these difficult times your sophisticated traveler is looking for. Meaningful establishments that are supportive of their communities, that sort of adopt the correct conservation principles. And if you go back to the conversation I said when we started our conversation, I say conservation, biodiversity is actually the most sustainable resource or advantage we have as Africans. And we want the world to come and experience this and embrace it. And we need to work in the form of that prism that I showed to you. Everyone has a role in it. So that's what I would ask our leadership, yes.
You are giving us a good example to work with. I really believe that border between the public and the private sector can be made by our president in a safe way, in a safe way, of course. That brings me to my last question. Unfortunately, I'm enjoying my time with you. What are your greatest hopes for after the lockdown, after everything has been cleared up?
You know, is to do what we do best, is to be of service to people, is to receive our guests and to make them unwind and rehabilitate from whatever troubles, whatever drives them and makes them come to our destinations. But having said that, it cannot be at all costs. It should be such that we do in a way that keeps our people safe and our guests safe, which goes back to our state of readiness from a health point of view, both our employees and the people we're going to be receiving. I mean, working out of a very, very out of the, I always say we're off the beaten track. We're out in the bush, in the bundus. We are isolated. When you have people working in your establishment, those people support multiple members of extended family. So one actually cannot afford to compromise their health and their lives, because if anything did not go right there, there's a whole string of people that become affected in that chain. And more also tarnishes the brand of our country. One product, one incident. And if we're going to promote our brand and keep it like that, it's important that we do it as cautiously, as safely, and as responsibly as possible. That I look forward to. Before we round off, I wanted to make one typical example that perhaps people can resonate with a lot of people. We can do all of things, but the decision is up to you, and may you decide which role you want to play, how you want to change the environment. Now, there's this little example that I like, and it comes from way back then when I was growing up with my mother. On Sundays, we're cooking, we're doing all kinds of things and sharing points of wisdom. And then one afternoon, she put 3 pots on the stove, and one was, she put eggs to boil in one pot. The second pot, she puts carrots to boil. And the third one, it was ground coffee beans. And then she said, okay, once you turn the temperature up 7-9 minutes, we know the eggs are going to boil and become hard. What do we walk away from this experience? Do you want to become the egg and become hard and staunch and bitter about what has just happened? Or do you want to be the carrot and be soft and lose the essence of what you are, the values, and succumb to the situation? Or do you want to be the ground coffee beans, where you get in there, you change the color of the water to get coffee, you change the environment that you are presented with, but still retain the essence of who you are? And it's a choice you make. So when we're faced with this kind of hardship, these are the choices we have to make. What do I want to be? Do I want to be the boiled egg? Do I want to be the carrot? Or do I want to be the ground coffee beans, in terms of how I change my environment to suit what needs to be done at this very moment? I love that example, because everybody can relate to these. I also like food. That's why I like to use food as well as an example. And everybody can relate to that. So it comes from within, and women have that in them. And this is what is going to carry us forward, because we do not want to be naive about the fact that it is actually quite strange times. And we need to draw from within and get something extra, something extraordinary from within us to make it through. And these are the very basic things we need to reach upon and utilize. It's all within our hands. That's what I would also say to the women out there who are battling it out.